Hi, I'm Nabila and I wanted to share my first impressions of my new Bernette Airlock B68. This video is not sponsored, but maybe if you subscribe and Bernette sees how popular my channel is. Also, I'm really excited about my next video that I'm doing a lot of research for. Here's a hint on what it's about. So be sure to subscribe and come back when that one drops on May 15th. So I was on the market for a new serger and a local shop nearby was actually doing a moving sale, so I was able to get this floor model for a bit of a discount. But what drew me into this model is that it feels like it can do anything. It can do an overlock, a baby hem, a flat lock, and even a cover stitch. Now the cover stitch was a big deal to me. When I was in college, my senior collection was actually an activewear collection. So I got really familiar with the industrial overlocker machine that was in our sewing studio. I kind of had to become an expert on it, and I was actually one of 2 students that knew how to thread the machine because it was my senior collection. So if the machine ever got jammed or something got messed up and it became unthreaded, I didn't have time to wait for a professor. Anyway, all that to say, I still love designing activewear and I wanted the freedom to design it and still make it look professional. So that's why the cover stitch was really important to me. And the biggest selling point to me for this machine is the air threader. Yeah, that's right. The task I dread most is now taken out of the equation with a machine that threads itself. You still need to thread the upper needles, but that's basically as simple as threading a regular machine, so that's the least I could do. In practice, it actually took me a while to understand how to use the airlock. There are these metal tubes that lock together, and in order to activate that, you need to flip a switch first and then turn the hand wheel so that they can actually lock together, and that took me a long time to figure out for some reason, but now that I know that, it's really incredible. Another thoughtful design detail is that when you have the switch flipped, you can't close the machine, so it's visually obvious that you can't start sewing with the 2 metal tubes engaged and locked on. And I think that's great because I could really see myself forgetting to undo all this otherwise. Speaking of thoughtful design details, I love all the gadgets and things that are included with this machine, and especially the ones that slip inside the front of the serger case for easy access. Whenever I have issues with my serger, one of the first things I reach for is my tweezers, and so I think it's really cool to have that accessible for me. Another tool that surprised me is this needle holder. At first when I saw this, I thought it was kind of silly because I usually just use my tweezers to hold my needles when I'm switching them out, but this tool makes it almost impossible to drop your needles, and if you know anything about changing needles in a serger, dropping your needles could be almost catastrophic. It just cradles your needle and allows you to spin it around and get it in the right position safely and easily. This little tool also apparently helps you thread your upper needles as well, but personally, I don't mind doing it the old-fashioned way. I know some of these tools are included in all Bernette and Bernette machines, and so some people might already be familiar with them, but I've never had anything from either line, so I was impressed. Onto the functionality of the machine, it was pretty easy for me to follow along with the manual and do an overlock, a baby hem, and a flat lock. Also, since I got the floor model of this machine, the store had made copies of all the stitch options and laminated them, and they actually gave it to me. These are super handy because I know I would be referencing them a lot in the manual, so having them just easily accessible is just a really nice idea, and I think everyone should actually do this if they have a serger. Also, my old serger, one thing it had going for it in the manual was it had examples of every single stitch, and it gave you detailed illustrations of troubleshooting each individual thread, and this machine doesn't have that, but in the manual it does have troubleshooting, but it's just plain text, there's no illustrations. But I will say the front of the machine is trying to give you those illustrations so you can kind of know like what's going on. So I guess that's still kind of helpful. For the cover stitch functionality, I was a little bummed at first that I needed to change the needle position no matter what cover stitch I wanted to try. But actually when I realized the additional tools to help you along with that process, like the little needle holder, it really wasn't too bad. There are a lot of things you need to remember to change about this machine to get it in cover stitch mode, and that's the needle position, the knife, and this plate right here. And so that is a lot to switch over, which is a little bit of a barrier to start a cover stitch, but I think that's better than buying a whole separate machine. There is one thing that scares me a little bit about the cover stitch on this machine is I read in the manual that you're not supposed to run off your fabric when you're ending a stitch, and I'm not sure why that is, but I'm so glad that I didn't miss that in the manual, because with every other stitch you can just run off your fabric and it's no big deal. So that's something that you need to be aware of, because I guess you could potentially damage your machine. And the last thing I want to touch on might just be a personal issue, but I found the manual a little confusing. When I went to set up my cover stitch, I needed to flip to 3 different sections in the manual to get it all set up correctly. And when I flipped to the part of the manual that was talking about cover stitch, it just said, here are the cover stitches that you have the option of. Like, it didn't tell me, oh, make sure you have the knife disengaged, make sure you have this plate on, make sure you have the needles in the right position. And so I needed to just figure that out from kind of going through the manual a couple times. But that is something that I'll get used to, and it's not really a big deal, but just for a beginner with this line, I was a little confused at first. Overall, I'm really liking it so far. The amount of space saved from having 2 different machines is completely worth all the adjustments that I need to do to get this started with a cover stitch. If you have a business, I could totally see how it could be more convenient to have 2 separate machines instead of this one that you need to change to make that cover stitch. But for your own personal projects, it really feels like this machine is holding your hand through the entire process while still making you feel very empowered as a sewist. Look at all these stitches that I can do with just one machine. That's crazy. I know this machine's a little pricey, but I still think it's completely worth the money for all my sewing needs. The only other machine that I was able to find with the same functionality, i.e. having the cover stitch, didn't have the air thread technology. There is a part of me that's a little paranoid about this air thread technology getting messed up with like dust in the machine over time or something like that, but I plan on taking this machine to my local shop for maintenance yearly, so hopefully that should prevent it. I didn't see that in any of the reviews, that's just me being a little bit paranoid. I also saw that they sell this machine on Bed Bath & Beyond online, and they offer a coupon on it, so that could be an option. Anyway, I'm super excited for all the projects that I'll do on this machine, and if you have any questions, please let me know. And please remember to come back on May 15th for that special video, because I'm super excited about it. And that's all for today. Bye!